I wanted to get to introduce Fleur because she's one of my favorite authors, and I love her kids' books, and so does the rest of the nation, and probably internationally too. Um, Fleur has loved puzzles and mysteries ever since she first discovered Agatha Christie novels. Author of many short mysteries and mysteries for kids, including Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, Viking Children's, and the Double Vision trilogy as F.T. Bradley, Harper Children's. Midnight at the Barclay Hotel was nominated for the Reading the West Agatha and Anthony Awards and recently won the SCBWI Crystal Kite Award and the Colorado Book Award. Fleur's story, The Perfect Alibi, appears in Mystery Writers of America's middle grade anthology, Super Puzzle-tastic, edited by Chris Grabenstein. He regularly does author school and virtual visits, as well as librarian and educator conference talks on reaching reluctant readers. I really admire you for doing that. Originally from the Netherlands, she now lives in Colorado with her family and entirely too many rescue animals. Find out more about Fleur at www.ftbradley.com. Fleur, thank you for being our guest tonight.
Okay, so I didn't start off writing children's stories, and I didn't really plan to. I started off writing short stories. I kind of, as a young mom, I wanted to do something for myself, so I wrote short mysteries, because mysteries are my favorites. So, and I kind of enjoyed that for about 10 years, and then realized, well, if I want to make a living at it, I may need to do more than write short stories. So I decided, well, at the time, Twilight was really big, and I thought, well, YA, there's fewer words in YA, so this is, might not be bad. I write short stories, and that whole idea of writing a whole novel was kind of intimidating. So fast forward a little bit, I wrote several YA manuscripts, never went anywhere or, got close. And then I got in contact with an agent who said, you should write middle grade because your voice writing is... So that's how I kind of fell into writing the Double Vision series. It was super fun, but it was also super intimidating because I knew nothing about the children's book market. So I kind of fell into that and having to figure out, okay, how am I going to sell this book? How am I going to even write it, first of all? So I had to learn that. And then getting in touch with that, the children's reader. How do you reach your market? So all the knowledge I have gained over the past years, I put into a 6-page handout that y'all have right there. And a caveat, markets change, depending on whether you self-publish or traditionally publish. Some of this information is based more on traditional publishing because I'd like you to make money if possible. But if you're independent, then some of these rules can be broken. So, my favorite quote, and I don't know if everybody can see it because the picture is in front of it, but it says you have to, let me write it. You have to write the book that wants to be written, and if the book will be too difficult for grown-ups, then you write it for children. This was the toughest lesson ever. Kids are tougher to write for. They are more picky, and you better bring your A game. So if you think it is easy, you read a picture book and you're like, I can do this. It's not many words. This is easy. I thought it was easy. Picture books are actually, I think, one of the hardest things to write. So I love that quote because it also, puts you kind of in your place, like respect your audience, respect who you are writing for. So welcome to Kidlit. So it covers everything from picture book to YA. And my goals today are to explain each market segment from an author's perspective. So how do you look at this market when you are a writer and you want to get your book published. How do you write these books? So the way that I'm doing this presentation is a bit backwards. Normally I would say, write the book you love and, and then figure out the rest. For children's books, I say, figure out the market first and understand what you're getting yourself into, and then write the book. So we're going to do it backwards a little bit because that works. Here, dragons love tacos. Oh, it's so fun. Picture book. So I'm going to give you resources so you can go home and write the book, so you can learn more. If you have an idea of a book for children, you have something to take home and do something with. So when you're done here, you have something useful, basically. Why do you want to write for kids anyway? So the best Kidlit writers don't talk to you. They remember what it's like to be a kid. School, I was happy, I think, and I was on a balance beam, and I was having a fun time, and there's my concentrated look. So if you want to write for kids, don't just look at, oh, what a cute kid is that. Remember what you felt like. And you were standing on that balance beam. Everybody has the story as a kid. Remember that. So what did you dream about? What did you worry about? Stuff that for us is like, whatever, no big deal, your outfit. Or whether you make it to school on time, or what's being served for lunch. Those things seem trivial to us, but they're really big. If you remember as a kid, some things just felt really big. And try to avoid starting with, I want to teach kids that, and fill in the blank. Bullying is bad. You should be nice to other people. It's not bad to have that feeling that you want to convey something in your fiction, but do it from the perspective of the child, not of the perspective of an adult that's talking down to you. Imagine sitting next to your kid readers and just having a conversation. I have the best time when I have school visits, when the kids get, then I am, at first it's like, oh, this is lady, and she's going to talk about books, and they're like this. And then towards the end, they forget that, I'm old, they're young. We talk about gadgets. My first series was a spy book series. We talk about gadgets, like what would be a cool gadget for Link to have as he goes on his next mission. Well, we would talk about that, and they'd come to me with ideas, or they make drawings, and that's what it's like. So remember what that felt like to be that age. What were you into? What was cool? It's the same. So we're all a bit older. It's not that different now to be down to the core of it. Sure, you see the phones and all the other stuff that's happening, but that's really not. It's not that different now to be a kid at. Your story is still interesting. So who's your buyer? So this is a picture of me doing an event at the Cherry Creek Middle School, the campus middle school. It was called One Book, One Campus. So the whole school, super cool, best thing I ever did. The whole school read my book, the first book, and they were all sitting there reading it, and I signed it. So they bought 1,000 books, which that's never going to happen again. But these are my buyers. So something to understand about children's books is that even though you are writing for children, the children are a lot of time not the ones buying it. These are librarians, parents, kids. So this is a really good way for you to kind of see who you're writing for. And writing for kids is harder because you have to keep both of those groups in mind, both the reader and the buyer. So we call them the gatekeepers, which sounds kind of terrible, but basically they're just people that are trying to make sure that my book is not going to hurt their kid, whether it's a librarian, a teacher, a parent, a grandparent. When I do book signings, a lot of times the grandparents will come up and go, is it clean? Because they want to buy the book for their grandchild, but there's a parent in between, who's maybe a bit of a helicopter parent, the type that picks everything apart. So they don't know what your book is about. Is it going to be okay to give to an 8-year-old? So those are your gatekeepers. Write the best book that you can, bearing your buyer in mind. It does not help you to write a book that you think is awesome and is completely wrong for the age group, and you can't place because you didn't first think about who's going to buy it, which is why. So understanding the split, here you online. You can do your research anywhere, but online is great. So we have picture books, right? Those are the ones that you read aloud with the kids. A lot of times the kids don't read them themselves. Sometimes they do. Most of the time they don't. Then we have chapter books. So Magic Tree House. You know, the ones that have 10 chapters, the ones they sell at the book fairs and Scholastic. First readers. So they are leveled, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. Then there's middle grade. Those are my books, basically, and those also come at different ages, different complexities, and you'll learn more if you're interested in that age group. Read a lot in it because it goes all over the place and it changes all the time. Then there's a giant line, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. And then there's young adult. So that line is there because that's where your gatekeepers are. Microphone, hope you guys. So this is where your gatekeepers are buying the books. You should assume. Sometimes when I'm in the bookstore in Barnes & Noble, whatever, on a Saturday, parents will come in with the kids, and the kids will decide they want the book, but it's still the parent who makes the decision, buys the book. Young adults, you are marketing directly to your reader, completely different ballgame. And a lot of times those readers are adults. No secret, I think it's more than half the people that buy the book. Been said to be as much as 80% are adults that are reading YA, not actual teenagers. So that line is there because if you are considering writing for either of these groups, understand that if you are in the group there with the gatekeepers, your marketing strategy and your writing is going to have to be guided to some extent by. So picture books. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the market and what you should consider. So if you have a great picture book idea, and who does not have a great picture book idea, right? I love picture books. They're my favorite. They are so hard, but we'll talk about that a little later. Now just market. So the word length is 0 to 1,000 words generally. If you are writing nonfiction, it might go over some, but generally it is there. Picture books have gotten shorter. The editors prefer for them to be really concise and for you to really have your stuff down. 500 words is a lot of time where they want it to be. So not a lot of words. Your reader age is 0 to 100. I think anybody can read picture books. Plus, something to understand is that sometimes picture books are used by older kids. So I know a lot of teachers who use books to talk about kindness or talk about diversity or talk about something that they're trying to handle in the classroom, and a picture book can be a great, concise way to read aloud or for kids to learn more. And they're also used in nonfiction. I would definitely say that there's a lot of kids that are older that use picture books. Anytime I have to research something, I get the picture books first because those authors have narrowed it down, taken all that information and put it into a very short, concise, clear format. So many formats. You have wordless picture books. So if you are an artist, that is a possibility, a very beautiful book. That board books, obviously the ones, with ABC. If you are an author, it's desirable to also be an illustrator these days. And more about that, but basically, it's about the money. So if you are publishing a picture book as a publisher, it's very expensive to publish. Illustrated, printing-wise, it's more expensive. And so as author, if you are an author and illustrator, you can do both those jobs. If you are an author, the publisher chooses the illustrator. So a lot of the time, even for my covers, and for Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, there were illustrations inside. The publisher has worked with illustrators, certain illustrators before, and they just sort of have like their little bank of people who will do a good job. So you don't get to pick the illustrator. I will say, if you are independently publishing something, obviously you can do whatever you want. So then you pick the illustrator and you work with that person. Understand, extremely complex. I would not want to take that on as an difficult, but I know that there's people that have done that. Advances. So how much money do you really get, right? 0 to 8,000. Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's little. You can submit without an agent even to the quote-unquote big houses. Why is that? For an agent, there's almost no money in it. You know, if you think about it, let's say I get a $2,000 advance, I did great. Got a picture book, somebody loves it, we get the illustrator. For the agent, that's what, you know, so can you imagine dealing with all the complexities that are come into trying to get a contract through and negotiating everything? A lot of the time, agents will do picture books rather as a favor to their client. Like, my agent might go, okay, I'll deal with your picture book. But there's not a lot of money in it. Now, there's exceptions to that rule, particularly author illustrators, because then, of course, that person brings the whole package. So that's interesting for agents and publishers. And there is a bigger market. For a while, picture books were kind of dead, and now there's a bit of a resurgence, it seems, and there's people that just represent picture books. Unusual, but it is done. That's the current market favors diversity in the author illustrators for that the reason I explained. The diversity element is that for a really long time, all the covers had white people on it. And guess what? America is not just white. So imagine if you are a black child or, you know, an Asian child or, right? And finally, publishers are catching on going, oh yeah, you know, we should probably change that. So great stuff being done, cool picture books being published about topics that I'm learning stuff. It's amazing. So it's an exciting time to be in children's books, I will say that. So moving on, chapter books. Word length, 1,500 to 10,000 words, depending on the age and reading level. The reader age is about 6 to 10. Your protagonist will be about 8 to 11. So something to understand is that a lot of kids read up. So even though your reader is younger, your protagonist will be older. For instance, YA is a lot of time read by middle school kids. When I first published or was working on a marketing plan for the Double Vision series, I looked at middle schools, but actually it's in elementary school classes that those books are read. In middle school, the kids are already looking at YA. Doesn't mean I don't do school visits and books aren't sold to kids that age, but understand that they skew kind of. So chapter books, many ages, ranges, topics. Lots of different stuff being published there. Here I have the Code Busters, really fun series, Warner. Need a strong hook for a picture book or for a chapter book, or it's intellectual property like Nancy Drew, you know. So in this case, like the Code Busters Club, she had a strong hook. It's the Code Busters Club, super. There's lots of other. I brought a few chapter books so you can get an idea of what that looks like, but you're probably familiar with it through your own kids or you know, just from out there being a kid yourself. Current market is there's room for new things, and it overlaps a bit into middle grade. So we'll talk about middle grade in a minute, but there is some room for it to kind of straddle. So when you get out of chapter books, so your Magic Tree House stuff or this Code Busters Club, then into middle grade. A lot of time, middle grade is a lot. They're thick books, they're difficult. So there's publishers who are interested in seeing younger middle grade, or sort of like that in between. So now we're into middle grade. There's where my books are, yay! So this is The Truth is Told by Mason Buttle. This is an unusual book because it is a literary book, but it is definitely a mystery. It was nominated for National Book Award, I think. Brought it with me, it's on the table. I really love this book. It was a character-driven book, but it had a mystery in it. So good example, if you get a chance to read it, I recommend. So word count for middle grade, 25 to 60,000 words, it's rough. If you have a fantasy middle grade or something that deals with more complex topics, you might be on the upper end of that. My Double Vision books were 50,000 words. Midnight at the Barclay Hotel is a little bit younger, has some illustrations. That was 35,000 words, just to give where that falls. So your reader age will be 8 to 14, your protagonist roughly 11 to 13. You know, something I've noticed, because I also read for like the Edgars, that in the past for this age group. That, for instance, in Europe, we'd get some books from that were first published in the UK. They'll have protagonists that are 14, 15. Here, it's publishers have a hard time placing that. It's middle grade or it's YA, and that age is kind of like, you know, what's happening? Are we having crushes yet, or are we not, or you know? So within the U.S. market, you know, for that 12-year-old protagonist. I have readers that, because I target reluctant readers, which are kids that don't like to read or aren't very strong readers, I sometimes get readers as old as 15 if they are, for instance, disability or have, you know, dyslexia, or there's other things going on that maybe put them in a younger mindset but want to read interesting stuff. So like the Double Vision series is a bit that way, lots of action. So middle grade, wide variety of topics and genres. You should really know where you fit. So if you want to write middle grade, read a lot of middle grade, because then you can go, okay, I fit here, or this publisher publishes what I do, because there's so much out there. There's the younger middle grade that I did with the illustrations, and even that for me was a learning curve because I had written a bit older middle grade before. And when the Double Vision series was first published, there was not a lot of room for complex, difficult topics. Immigration or incarcerated parents, or, I mean, those are all things that kids are dealing with, and a lot of the time the best way for them to learn how to deal with it is to read about it. So more publishers are putting books out there on topics that maybe there's something that you're really, you know, that you know a lot about, and you want to share that with kids. And how do you deal with, I don't know, take your pick of whatever topic it is that you know about. Or maybe there's a historical period. You were talking about, you know, history that kids maybe don't know about. Like I was saying before, we think as adults sometimes that there's this giant canyon cave space between us and kids and relating to kids, but they're dealing with a lot of the same stuff. So, current market is good. Diversity is big. So, as most of us here are white, that might feel like, oh, there's no room for me. There's room for you if you write a good book. You have to learn, and that's something I had to learn. When the Double Vision books came out, I had a Hispanic character in there, and I had to tone down that character, so I just didn't describe the way she looked, and kind of circumvented that. Back then, I could only write about white people. My main character was from California, working class. I'm like, there is no way his entire life is white. You know, that's just not realistic. There's going to be Hispanic people. California is full of that. So I was very frustrated. Forward to Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, I was still kind of writing from that, okay, all my people are going to have to be white. I just won't describe them. And then we got to this new age we're in now where I can have people of color in my book. As a white person to write about that. And now in my book that I'm working on now, I have a Korean character in there, and I have to learn about what does that feel like? What's his family like? And that's okay for me as a white person to write about. So it's a different time. I can write about about the kids that I do school visits with, because they're not all white. I've stood in front of a entirely black class before. You know, so as a writer, you will, and as you go out there and talk to kids, you're going to see all the inequality, diversity, all the problems, and they can be in your book, even if you're white, which is mystery is desirable, so yay for us, because guess what? It's really hard to write a mystery, apparently. I didn't know that. I'm like, I love writing mysteries, putting clues in there. I'm doing whole classes for people who are children's writers who don't know how to write a mystery. So you're ahead of the game, you know. You already know that. Writing for kids is fun, so, you know, the hard part is done. So then we get into YA. Very raw and fairly dark crime novel. In young adults, you can do pretty much whatever you want. Word count 50 to 80,000 words. Reader age up. Lots lots of adults read YA. Your reader is your buyer, you know. But also TikTok people. Are you on TikTok? I am not yet on TikTok. So, and I wrote a YA, and apparently there's book talk, and I might go on TikTok. Let you know how it goes. There's more support in the genre community for YA. So something I run into a lot is that people don't know what to do with me when I come to conferences or events, because they're kind of like, she writes for kids. We put her on a panel. With YA, they have more awards for YA within genre. For middle grade, it's tougher. Like there's the Anthonys, the Agathas, the Edgars, but still you're sort of like, don't really know what to do with you a lot of the time. So be prepared for that if you have. YA is a little easier that way. It's a crowded market, meaning it's hard to. There's a lot edgier stuff going on in YA than in the early days of, maybe when I first started writing 15 years ago. But there's room for mystery, I think, for the same reason that there's room for mystery in the children's, because not everybody knows how to write it. I judge for the Edgars in YA, and trust me, there's a lot of really bad books. Just because someone doesn't know how to plot that mystery. There's also really good ones. So, there's room. Diversity's big for the same reasons, spoke of before, and the movement's called We Need Diverse Books. It's an organization. They try to make sure that people are represented. It goes from anywhere from Native American characters to. No, it's fine. I have a question. Yes. This is something I've wondered as well. The question is, I don't know if everybody at home can hear, does the market also want diversity? The publisher does. I don't know. So the librarians, teachers are buying it. There's some pushback from people that are on the conservative side that don't always feel comfortable with these books being. I am interested to see what happens over time, because also what has happened, because we put all these white people on the cover and the stories are about white people, we lose readers. You can't just go, oh, look, we have all the books now, come read. Maybe I'm sort of interested to see whether the kids are going to show up for it, the buyers will show up for it, particularly in YA, because YA is bought by the reader. So, like for me in middle grade and chapter books and those, that's a lot of the time librarians, teachers, so they're people that buy the book because they think that it is a necessary thing to be in a different perspective than if you are a consumer. So it'll be interesting to see how this moves forward. Back when I started, there was so very, very little, for instance, because we lived in Mississippi for a while, for black kids, there just was anything, or a lot of it was very much, showing them in these gritty urban situations that the readers were really not, they're like, not all that there is to being black. So a lot of it is people trying to figure out, publishing itself is starting to figure out, okay, we have a lot of white people that are also the editors, and all the people that are working in publishing there's too many white people. So trying to figure out, okay, how do we try to fix that? Have a diverse author group, but if you have white editors, they're not going to understand or not going to be able to get the right book out there we want it to be. We'll have to wait and see. So far, it's doing, diverse books are doing well. I know several middle grade books with diverse characters are doing well, so I'm hoping it stays before. But it'll be interesting to see whether there's going to be a dust settling period afterward, whether publishing is really going to change or whether it's just. Okay, so now we're going to talk about writing those books. We talked about the market, which is dry and boring, but as you see, it's better to kind of know, otherwise you might write a book nobody wants. Rule number 1, kids should drive the story, adults should be in the back seat. A lot harder than it seems when you have a kid character, middle grade character, who when I grew up, we would go outside and just, do whatever. Kids have a lot more parental supervision now. You have to write a scenario that makes it realistic for them to solve the mystery, for instance, Leave room for your reader to imagine themselves in the book. So that's a bit of a vague statement, but it's really important for you to sort of create that illusion that this could happen to your kid. I have in my first book a spy character. He goes to Paris and takes the place of a kid spy. Totally unbelievable in theory, but, if you create the network or the framework where that's believable, that's possible. Kids love it, and I had humor and voice are a bonus. So that was the reason. Strangest story ever. My first book sold on a proposal, which almost never happens. That's more like a nonfiction thing or people who are famous. But I wrote a sample and with the voice of the character, and he's kind of funny. Ironically, my background in sort of noir mystery writing worked great for that, because you have kind of that cynical world view or a little bit, and I just brought that to middle grade. So that's what sold. And it's the humor and the voice that drives the story forward. You can pretty much, do with that whatever you want, but if you can kind of, that's hard, but it's huge. So the heart of the story, don't be afraid to be a little bit more. I have to learn that still sometimes, to be very vocal in what your character wants and what hurts and what is, the emotions can be a little bit harder than your adult writing. So writing picture books, oh my goodness, there's a whole system. This is the system. It's in your handouts, last page. I didn't know. I'm like, oh, this would be fun. Not that many words. Right up my alley? No. It's like catching lightning in the bottle, really. Read widely. Picture books are fun. You read them quickly, and you can learn a lot by what other people are doing. Dragons Love Tacos is a brilliant, very funny picture book, and that's definitely an example of somebody who caught light. And there's a whole world of, I could teach a whole class about, I'm not even writing picture books, I could teach a whole, very complex. But this is the format, so that makes you understand a little bit how it works. So all this is really showing, publishers literally use this for picture books. So basic rule is you want your reader to turn the page, which seems really simple, but take a look at picture books and kind of try to, you'll see what's leave room for the illustrator. So if you are the writer and not the illustrator, you're only telling half the story. The mistake a lot of people make is that they think that the picture book text tells everything. If you want to see an example of how that's done, there's a picture book called Sam and Dave Dig a Hole. Text is telling one thing, but the picture is telling something completely different. Hilarious if you get it. It takes you a minute. It took me a minute. Like, what is this book? Is you start to see what's happening in the picture. You're like, oh, this is very funny. So that's picture books for. Make a dummy. So literally, make out of paper a little dummy of your picture book if you've written it. See how it flows according to these rules. Again, this is super in a nutshell, but that will have fun. I wrote several picture book manuscripts. We'll probably never go anywhere, but it's really a fun way to write. So, chapter books. This King and Kayla, this is a younger chapter book, so there's very few words, only 5 chapters. So this is a very beginning chapter book series. Is it idea of concept driven? Am I okay for time? Where am I? Oh, okay. So the outline and format is more rigid than middle grade. A lot of the time, publishers have a certain idea of what it should be, and part of that is based on the fact that these kids are just learning to read. So there's certain words that your vocabulary needs to be adjusted to what they can understand. And the best way to figure that out is read a lot of chapter books. And there's some books that will say, okay, these are the words that are okay for this age, and these are not. I found that a little bit overwhelming myself when I worked on the chapter book manuscript. I find the best way to write them is to just read a lot of them and you get a feel for it. There's the phrase length and word choice. Some books are IP, work for hire. So let's say Nancy Drew, they want a chapter book series. they hire someone for that, so that sometimes that comes through an agent. I just did a work for hire project for nonfiction, and they contacted me through me. So, you know, you just never know. But that's how chapter books can be. I have a friend who wrote like a Disney thing based on one of. So you want to know your publishers, your trends. This segment is a little bit more controlled and restrictive. Then we get to middle grade. You can have more fun and do what you like. So you want your hook to be strong still for middle grade, mostly because there's a lot of other people writing, you know, just like anywhere else. So just in a nutshell, people need to know what it is. That's what helped me with Midnight at the Barclay Hotel. I knew I wanted an Agatha Christie-style mystery for kids. Murder in it, which at the time, people didn't know murders. So I put a murder in it. I made it cozy, just like us cozy writers know. You can put a murder in there, and it doesn't have to be scary. And people are reading this with their third graders, so, you know. So, again, remember what it's like to be 12. I can't say that enough. If you take anything away from this, it's that. Be a kid. I have the best fun because I'm like, oh, what is it like? You know, what did I want? What did I think about? If I'm that character, what is important to me? So you want to read a lot in your segments, and it's fun. You really do get to be 12. If you have grandchildren, kids, you know, read the book together. Buy the book for you, buy the book for the kids, and then talk about it with each chapter. That, particularly now that we're all removed and we can't be together, it's an excellent way to be together. When my book launched, The Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, everybody was like, oh, sorry for you. You know what? It wasn't that bad. Because I did about 100 Zoom visits with schools, and people were at home reading with their children, where before they weren't doing that as much because everybody's busy running around. Now they're like, we need to do something. So here's a book. And they were reading it together, and it did really well. So just goes to show. Voice, perspective, humor are important. Have some fun, experiment a little, try, you know, different perspectives, different characters. I have 3 different character perspectives in my books, which is kind of hard to manage. I won't be lying there because you know, trying to make the emotions of all those and keep your voice steady. Double Vision was written in first person and is very much a funny character, but that's also exhausting because you have to be going for 50,000. Understand the limitations in middle grade. Parents, curfews, no car, where are they going? Do they have a phone? At that age, you can have them not have a phone still. A lot of kids are, you know, 12 do not, but a lot of them do. I like to put people in a position where there's no cell phone reception. Right? And I'm getting away with it still. Like Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, I'm like, okay, we're putting them on a mountain. There's no cell phone reception. I remember the gatekeepers, like I said. Those are your librarians. You can read, a lot of them blog and review, so you can get a perspective of, okay, what do they like? What's the criticism of some of the books, and how can I make sure that I don't make that mistake? Writing young adult. Here's April Henry. She's writing mysteries for. Hers are clean, relatively. They're library interesting. You know, if I were a librarian, I wouldn't be afraid to give to a teen or a middle grader without, you know, I won't get pushback from. So anything goes in general. So if you have, you know, an idea for a YA, you want a good hook. It's a very crowded market. So is it a library or commercial title? So remember, April Henry is sort of a given by a librarian, which can be great if you are writing in that segment. And there's a desire for this kind of story, just so you know. I read a lot of YA mysteries, and a lot of them are just dark, or they're just, it's so much mature content. A lot of kids actually don't want that. They just want, you know, it's a scary blooming world out there with the cell phones and the bullying and all the other horrible things that they're exposed to that we don't even know about, you know. So a lot of time in their books, they actually want a safer world, a world that shows them, hey, there are rules, and if someone commits a crime, there's repercussions. So think about that if you are, for instance, a cozy mystery writer. You actually might have a bit of a hole in the market for that. Read a lot of them. They're fun. I think YAs are fun because it is a time, and I think the reason adults like YA is because stakes are really big, emotions are really big, and it's a time in your life where you're making a lot of really big decisions. So teens, if you're writing that sort of anything goes teen, a lot of drama. If you've had teenagers, oh my goodness, everything is this big. So, your writing can be more dramatic, but that's also fun for a writer, I think. So, now what? Read a lot. I get frustrated when someone comes to me and goes, well, I don't really read books for kids, and then you should probably not write. You need to know. Just like if I was going to write a cozy mystery, I'd have to research that. If I was going to write noir, then I can't just kind of take a stab at it. You have to read it. Please don't just read Nancy Drew. People go, oh yeah, I read Nancy Drew. Don't just, if you're buying books for your children, it's great that you have a classic that you really love, but A, read it again, please, now, and see if it's still that good. Ooh, you will be surprised by how disappointed you'll be, because that book just hit you at the right time, and that was maybe, 40 years ago, and it's not holding up. It really isn't. Some books do, but some books really don't. So if you want to give it, read it again. But maybe pair it with one. Try to find out what's happening now. Like, what's a cool mystery now? And I'm not just talking about my own books. There's, a ton of mysteries out there. This is the Anthony lineup of books that were nominated, including mine. There's so many great mysteries for kids being published. So if you are reading, read what's new, so you can understand what's happening now. Sign up for newsletters. There's a lot of publisher newsletters. They're free. It's free information. They want to sell you a book. You don't have to buy the book. You can go to the library and get it. But it will give you information about what that publisher's doing. Each publisher has their own niche. Like, for instance, Harper, that published Double Vision, more into commercial titles. Viking is a little bit more picky and more into evergreen titles that they can find. So kind of get to know where you would fit. It's free information. It's fun. You can always unsubscribe. Other Kidlit writers are really nice people. I kid you not. YA people, I'm not sure. I've heard some cattiness going on there and drama, but generally, if I feel sad, I look at picture book illustrators. They do nothing but beautiful, uplifting things, and I follow a lot of them on Twitter, and it makes me happy. So even if you're not writing, they're such incredibly talented people, they'll just sit down for a day and oh, look what I did this morning, where I'm like, up and drink coffee. It's really neat. And they're great people. So if you are thinking about writing, set some goals. There's contests, there's critique groups, there's lots of motivating people. We all know, you don't work in a vacuum. Find some others. Let me know how it goes. I actually like hearing from people, and they're like, hey, I saw your presentation so many years ago, and I just wrote this book. And I'm like, oh, how cool is that? Maybe I did a tiny thing to make you excited about it. I hope I did. Okay, so there is me. Website, there's Super Puzzle-tastic Mysteries. Oh my goodness, that title. And this is to share something cool about now, because it's so hard to see the cool. We did a launch for this book, and there's about 20 authors in there and some pretty big name ones. Launch. And no one is going anywhere. So everybody, even the bigger name authors showed. So it was a really cool experience. That's a Mystery Writers of America anthology. If you want to learn more about middle grade, this is a good place to start. There's my book, and there's the Double Vision trilogy. The handout has lots of links in it if you have it. If you want to have it, if you guys at home want to have it, either email me or Margaret, and we can get it out to you, because there's hyperlinks in there also, so it's a lot easier from the handout, the e-handout, that you can just click and go to whatever website. So all this information, this 10-year accumulation of frame is in the handout, and to children's book. Really fun. We need more mystery people, please. So I'm not the only one at the conference going, I wrote a children's book, and everybody going, oh. Don't know what to do with you. So then we can have like a group and anyway. I hope you do, because I really, on a serious note, I think there's a real hole in the market. If you know how to write a mystery, which you all do, then you're already like 8 steps ahead of a lot of. Thank you for listening to me today. Anybody have a question? Oh my gosh, I'm very Okay, so if anybody has a question, you can
I do.
plant me.
Fleur,
Oh, yes.
are we
Is that
allowed?
okay?
Oh, yeah, I wanted,
I'll
you
do
said,
Barb first.
you said about illustrations. My question is, in those picture books you're talking about, what if it's photographs? Are they a popular thing to combine versus illustrations, or?
I've seen it sometimes in nonfiction, but not generally. Now, for every rule, and I will say that now, I've done a few talks like this, and I said something, and then someone broke the rule. So, so you can break the rule. If you've got something awesome that you're like, this would be really cool, generally they're illustrations.
Okay.
So start, if you are coming from that perspective where you're like, I want to write a picture book, but I want to do it with photographs, maybe write the book first. And if the text is so good, we'll find an illustrator, or you can say, hey, I have photographs to go with it. It could, but it tends to be nonfiction that goes with photographs. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There is a guy that I have edited a couple of, and he wanted to write a children's. I know any illustrators. I told him essentially that I thought the publisher did it. I didn't know. I wanted to publish it. Is there a place where there are? Is there a place where you can like go and find illustrators for children's books, assuming you want to do it yourself?
So there's the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, SCWI.
Yes.
I'm part of that. So they have illustrators there who will work for hire or will partner sometimes. I would caution anybody self-publishing. I've seen some very self-published ones. It is really hard to contract to get, if you look at Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, the thing that I love the most, even though it only has some illustrations, is that someone really did everything right, down to the font, down to the little chapter headings that look like if it's at an old hotel like the Stanley, and the whole mood is right. It's really hard to do that. I've not seen many self-published picture books that are successful in that partnership, because it is really hard to illustrate a picture book. It can be done. There's people that do that as a work for hire, expect to pay. A lot of people think that it doesn't cost a lot. That's someone who's doing artwork for 30 pages, drawing 30 paintings for you and a cover.
Website.
Upwork?
Used to be a land.
Okay,
Oh, I remember
that's
that,
possible. Yeah.
I
So, I
actually
mean-
hired a great illustrator from there. I hired a couple.
Really? Okay.
But it's possible. I think one thing I will say about whether you do this independently or self-publish or however you a name you want to put on it, every time I sit down at a signing, a lot of the time when it's at a Christmas fair or whether it's at a bookstore, a lot of the time I sit next to a self-published person and they do sell, literally, like down to sell as many books as I do. So I don't want to stand here. I come from a traditionally published background, so that but I also know that not everyone breaks through that way, and it isn't fair. No, it's not a fair process to find an agent and to find a publisher. We probably all know this if you've been moving around. And sometimes it's luck, and sometimes you have a really great book, and I know a lot of really great writers are not published. So it's possible. But I do not envy someone having to partner with an illustrator you have to really believe in the book. Yeah. You're publishing, like really feel like you are ready to go out there and sell the thing and tell the story about the thing. Okay, so what are the parameters in YA around sexuality? There are none, depending on what you are publishing. So I've read some with pretty graphic sort of sex stuff in it, and I've read some that don't. I've read some that deal with really difficult, like, through. But you can pretty much do what you want. Something to be very, very aware of, I think, right now in YA and with teens in general, is that there's a lot more openness when it comes to LGBTQ+, so that's your gay, transgender. There's more movement towards people who don't identify as a gender, so gender neutral, and that are addressed as they, them. That is why you see she, her. Mine is because that's where the industry is now. For me, that's a hurdle to get over because I'm older and I'm like, whatever is this stuff? But that's what's moving there now. And the one great thing about whether you're writing for YA or writing for kids is that it forces you to kind of get over your own oldness. I have two daughters. One is 19, one's 21. And they're leaving the house, and I'm kind of bummed because they're keeping me young and they're keeping me sort of on my toes. But they're like, well, Mom, that's not okay, or you can't say that anymore, or and that's, on the one hand, you're like, well, we back in my day. Well, it's not back in our day anymore. So, just take it as an opportunity. Take it as an opportunity, even if you're feeling uncomfortable and it makes you kind of want to push back. Take it as an opportunity to learn and to grow. That is really something you could do within YA, and I don't know if that really goes to Sue's question, but basically anything is possible, but do it with respect to your reader. So understand they're smarter than you are. Oh my goodness, my two daughters will put me in my place when it comes to just being accepting, and when it comes to kind of understanding how that feels. So if you are writing in YA and sex is a part of it, I would make very sure that you take the time, just like you do with the middle grade. And remember me, a little girl at school, you have to do the same for YA. Remember what you felt like when you were a teen. It's not that, even though it looks different now.
Back in my day, which is shrouded in the mist of time, it seemed to me that somewhere around, 10 or so, there became for want of a better description, a gender divide in who was reading and who wasn't, and what they were reading. Yeah. And it seemed to me back then that more girls in that demographic were reading than the boys, or at least reading more.
It's the same, unfortunately. And this is what was hard. When I was writing YA, I wrote from a male perspective, and I could not sell the books. And that was because boys, I was told, boys don't read. and this is when when I got into middle grade, I'm like, I'm going to make dang sure that however I can, I'm gonna try to reach those boys so they read as teens, because it makes me sad. But it is still the case, to a large extent, your readership in YA is largely female. A horrible statistic that's like 80-90% or something. Read for pleasure. Now, kids have to read anyway, and part of the problem is when they get into those teen years, and I had that myself, you have so much assigned reading, you don't want to read outside of school a lot of the time, and that's particularly on the male side. So that's still the case. Unfortunately, that has not changed.
But
Maybe it will.
I would guess, since I know that at 10 and 12 I was very interested in girls, becoming curious.
Yes.
I would presume that that age girl is equally curious about what boys are, who they are. So you could actually have a story about, you know, boys that's directed to a female audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something that I've seen done that does seem to work in YA is they call it a duology, which really just means two perspectives. So a lot of times what they'll have is a female and a male perspective, and that seems to still sell, but unfortunately still to girls. Something I did pick up on recently, which I thought was interesting, because I always said, well, the difference between middle grade and YA is sex, you know, and transportation. So in teens can drive, you know, the 12-year-old cannot, and, you know, you can't cover sex or relationships in middle grade. Well, apparently there's a real interest, and ironically from boys, in romance in middle grade. Middle grade with the romantic, and I think that plays into what you're saying, is that boys are just, you just want to, you know, girls seem kind of foreign, and see how that has not changed. You know, it's the same now, same as we were. It's just a little different packaging, but they're interested in it now. So what I'm expecting is that we'll start seeing some middle grade with, I don't want to say a romance in it, but where they're actually going to talk about boy-girl relationships, where in the past that was sort of a big fat taboo. When I started writing, you couldn't write about that. So that's what I'm expecting. So that's sort of interesting, and it kind of ties into what you're saying. And maybe in YA, you know, maybe that will inch boys into wanting to read some YA if there's a better coverage of that angle in it. Every time there's a rule, it will, you know, tomorrow someone will break whatever rule I talked about today. I'm so happy to be here.